Have you ever wondered what a man truly gives when he sleeps with someone? It is not just the body, nor performance. What he offers, without realizing it, is the soul. A soul hungry for validation, for affection, for the feeling of being chosen. But that offering comes disguised as desire, as lust, as virility. It is not just skin brushing skin, there is a deeper current flowing underneath. Because at the core, a man's true desire is not sex, it is to be seen, to be felt, to be recognized as whole, even in his brokenness. Men who kneel before a woman's body with their mouths are not chasing pleasure. They are chasing the affection they never received. It looks physical, but it is spiritual. It looks like lust, but it is ancestral emptiness disguised as power. When intimacy is real, it exposes the theater of performance and the fragility behind the armor. And it is in that brutal moment that Jung's psychology reveals itself. The body as oracle, the shadow as mirror, but only seen by the one brave enough to pierce through the mask and dive into the cutting truth. Carl Jung never saw desire as mere instinct. He saw intimacy as a channel between worlds, the conscious and the unconscious. He said every act of intimacy reveals more than it appears. To him, desire is not born in the body, it is born in the psyche. Every movement, every impulse, has roots buried deep in the unconscious. Sex is an exchange of energy, of shadows, of intention. And when the wrong woman enters your life, what should have been pleasure becomes physical, emotional, and spiritual drainage. In this video, you will understand why so many men feel empty after sex, why there is a fatigue that does not come from the body, it comes from the soul. Because every time you surrender without presence, without real connection, you are trading pieces of yourself for crumbs of validation. The female body is a temple, but so is yours. And when two temples meet without consciousness, energetic chaos is born. You are not just having sex, you are opening portals, and not all portals lead to safe places. As this journey unfolds, you will begin to see what has always been there, but no one ever taught you how to decode. When a man truly surrenders in intimacy, he does not just show his body. He reveals hidden parts of the soul, the fear of rejection, the insecurity he masks with strength, the silence heavy with an invisible past. Visceral intimacy is not about sex. It is about feeling naked on the inside, because it is in that glance, in that pause between touches, that the invisible child appears, the one who only wanted to be loved without having to earn it. And that is more terrifying than any physical nudity. How many men in that moment of truth crumble on the inside, while their face remains firm? The mask of the strong does not fall through yelling. It dissolves in silence. A single touch can awaken the echo of abandonment. A small gesture can expose an emotional scar he never learned how to explain. Jung said the unconscious is always speaking, and in intimacy, it screams. The body becomes the stage where the soul performs its hidden pain. This is why many men pull away when they feel too close. Because facing intimacy means facing the emotional mirror, and not everyone is ready to see who they truly are. The collapse of masculine strength does not begin with a crisis. It begins with a single touch that slips through the cracks in the armor, and when that happens, something inside begins to awaken. But that awakening is only the beginning. Most men grew up believing that giving pleasure was a matter of technique, as if it were a performance. Do it well, impress her, prove that you are enough. But real desire, the kind that connects, the kind that touches the soul, goes far deeper. To give pleasure can be a spiritual act, a way to access that forgotten part of yourself, the part you buried long ago. Because at the core, every man carries a soft, delicate side, one the world taught him to hide. Jung called that the feminine within the man. And the paradox is this: when a man truly surrenders in intimacy, he does not just touch her body, he touches that hidden part of himself. Sacred pleasure is not about control, it is about overwhelming presence. It is when the body becomes an oracle, an emotional mirror where he sees himself with no mask. And in that ritual of touch, something awakens, something no performance can fake. This is where desire ceases to be just flesh and becomes soul. Ritual sexuality does not begin in the body, it begins in listening, without words, in allowing that exiled sensitivity to rise again. It is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about reconnecting with who you really are beneath the fractured armor. And when that happens, pleasure becomes healing. But for many men, that still feels far too dangerous. Many say they want love, but deep down, what they crave is approval. Desire does not only come from the longing to connect with another, but from ancestral lack, the desperate need to finally be chosen, as if in every relationship. The invisible child inside is waiting for someone to say, "I see you, you matter." And that is where the trap begins. Because when the thirst to be loved is greater than the ability to love yourself, the man begins to shapeshift. He erases himself, he bends, he sacrifices his soul for crumbs of acceptance. Have you seen that man? The one who does everything, who is always available, always kind, and still he is ignored? It is not that he is wrong, it is that he is trapped in an emotional loop. Excessive kindness is often just pain wearing the mask of virtue. He is not loving, he is begging for affection through the language of performance. And here is where the dark projection begins. He expects the other person to save him, to rescue him from his lack of self-love. But that never works. It takes courage to look inward and ask, what am I trying to prove? Because sometimes, that effort to be the perfect partner is just a denied reflection of a self-esteem in ruins. And when the man understands that truth, he begins to dismantle the theater of performance. He starts to access his raw presence, the part of him that does not need to be perfect to be loved, but to reach that place, he must face his own shadow. And it is in that moment that the game changes completely. Carl Jung once wrote one of the most brutally honest truths in all of psychology: what you do not make conscious will appear in your life as fate. And that is exactly what happens to so many men. They believe they are making choices, but in reality, they are just repeating unresolved pain. The shadow is the hidden, wounded, rejected side of the self. It takes the wheel of a man's life without him even noticing. And so, every relationship becomes a repetition of old trauma, a cycle that never closes. This is why intimacy can feel like a minefield, not because the other person is toxic, but because the wounds within are still open. He approaches with the mask of strength, but inside, he is collapsing. He looks to the other for a solution to the existential emptiness he has never healed. In this inner battle, the body becomes either a fortress or a bridge. It all depends on how he faces emotional nakedness, as a threat or as an opportunity for healing. The shadow is not what you hate, it is what you hide from yourself. That fear of being weak, that panic of being rejected, that invisible thirst for approval, all of it lives there, in the unconscious, waiting for its moment to emerge. And where does it emerge? In the touch that triggers memory, in the emotional mirror of intimacy, in the repeated choices that seem like coincidence, but are not. Every man at some point will project onto the other what he has not yet discovered within himself. He looks at a woman and, without realizing it, turns her into everything: lover, mother, confidant, savior. But the problem is not in loving. It is in expecting someone else to fill what is empty inside. That is not love. It is the shadow's projection of ancestral lack, a phantom desire for an affection he never lived. And that projection almost always ends in frustration. Because when you place someone on a pedestal, you are not seeing them. You are seeing the reflection of your own wounded soul. That idealization becomes an emotional prison. Because with the first mistake, the whole castle collapses. The man who once projected greatness now feels contempt. Desire becomes resentment. All because he tried to find outside what he was meant to awaken within. His sleeping anima, his denied sensitivity, his deep inner presence. It is in this desperate search to feel complete that many men lose themselves. They confuse intensity with love, lack with connection, presence with salvation. But no woman, no matter how incredible, can be the perfect mirror for a man who has not yet met himself. The emotional mirror starts within. And to look at that naked reflection requires a courage most men do not have. And yet, that very courage is the key to the next step. Most men spend their lives waiting to be validated, a compliment, a choice. A soft touch that says, "You are enough." But the truth, however sharp it may be, is this: that validation never lasts, because it comes from the outside, and whatever comes from the outside will always leave. True healing begins the moment a man realizes he no longer needs to beg for affection, because that thirst to be chosen can only be quenched when he chooses himself first. Self-knowledge is the key, not as a book theory, but as a living practice. To look inward with raw presence, to listen without words, to face the existential void without running. It is in that place, where the soul lies in ruins, that the true masculine awakening begins. Intimacy stops being a performance and becomes a mirror of truth. Desire, when it is born from within, does not beg. It invites, it dances lightly. It is an expression of the soul. That is the moment when sexuality transforms into ritual, no longer an escape, but a return, where sacred pleasure does not come from emptiness, but from fullness, where the shadow becomes an oracle and silence becomes wisdom. But to reach that place, a man must pass through the prison of the ego and tear off, one by one, the masks of strength. And in that pilgrimage, he finds something the world tried to bury: his exposed humanity. Not every woman deserves access to your body, much less to your energy. Sex, when unconscious, becomes an open channel through which your life force can be drained without you even realizing it. There are women, emotionally wounded, addicted to drama, disconnected from themselves, who carry within them a void. And when you merge with that void, it devours the most sacred parts of you, your clarity, your strength, your direction. You leave the encounter more empty than when you entered, and still, you believe it was pleasure. What she lived with other men, her emotional addictions, the unconscious pacts she maintains, all of that is etched into her body. And sex is the doorway through which those energies enter your life without asking for permission. You are not just having sex with her body, you are engaging her energy, her traumas, her unresolved demons. And if you are not awake, that fusion becomes contamination. You begin to feel fatigue, apathy, confusion, and you do not even know why. This kind of intimacy is an invisible exchange, but it is devastating. It means nothing to have physical strength, fake confidence, or spiritual quotes on your feed, if in practice, you keep opening yourself to women who live in chaos. It takes energetic discernment, presence, and a new pattern of choice. Because as long as you keep giving yourself to anybody just to silence your emptiness, your soul will remain in ruins. And one day, it may never return from where it was taken. Now answer honestly, how many times did you give yourself to someone thinking it was just desire, but left the bed more lost than before? How many times did you confuse pleasure with connection and gave your energy to someone who did not even know how to care for her own? The answer may hurt, but it might also free you. Because from this moment on, you can no longer say you did not know. You now understand that sex is not a game. It is a ritual, that the body is an oracle, and every intimate choice you make either rebuilds you or buries you deeper into your own abyss. Now the choice is yours. Will you keep offering yourself fully to someone who only wants a piece of you? Or will you finally start requiring a level of consciousness worthy of your soul? If this video shook something inside you, comment below the part that spoke to your soul. And if this reached you, share it with the men who are still asleep. Subscribe, because what we are revealing here is not just about sex, it is about who you are when no one is watching, not performance, presence,